Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to go ahead and show you how to unwrap using a cylindrical unwrap method as well as a planar. So cylindrical, as you could imagine, is used to unwrap cylinders, right? You can also use it to unwrap a sphere, but there is a spherical unwrap method included. Um, and then there's also the planar, which is basically going to project it from whichever axes we tell it to. So I'm going to go ahead and just get started. In this lab, the last one we did, the intro to unwrapping and texturing, we did a crate using a cube. This time we're going to do a wooden barrel, but using a cylinder. So I'm just going to go ahead and scale this a little bit larger. And we don't really need to do anything to this. If you want to get a little bit fancier with it, sure, by all means. But just for these purposes of this lab, I would like to keep it as simple as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and get started, and the first thing I'm going to do is I need to unwrap this. So by default, if I go into my panels and I go into saved layouts and I go to persp and UV editor, you'll notice by default this is my layout. Now, as I guess nice as it is, it's technically unwrapped in essence, but it could be a lot better. And just for say 5, 4, and 4. Maybe 6. That'll work. So just as you noticed, in case you want to, oh wow, look at that, 6.6.6. In case you want to have the same exact dimensions as me, that's totally fine. But there it is. But one of the things you'll notice is that while I was adjusting the scale of it, nothing was changing in the UV editor. So even though I changed attributes over here, it did not change any of the information here. So even though this got larger, this stayed the same size because your UVs can only stay within that square of 0, 0 to 1 to 1 in that sort of square space there. Now, what I want to do is I want to unwrap this. So I guess I'll start with the hard part, or the harder part first. So I'm going to switch to my face mode, and I'm simply just going to select all these faces. You can also, if you select the arrow tool, I always recommend selecting the arrow tool first, because when you hold right click and go to face, and we run a click and drag, from here, right, if I don't select this first, a lot of times you try to click in here and it won't work. So always go back to the arrow tool first, and then you can always select faces in your UV editor also. When something's totally unwrapped, sometimes it's a lot easier to just grab things from the UV editor. So anyway, now that I've got those faces highlighted, and it's just these ones wrapped around, you'll see. Alright. So I'm going to, from here, I'm going to go to UV and cylindrical. And you'll notice it just wraps right around it. And you'll notice in here we get this nice clean cylinder unwrap. Now, the nice thing about this, tools, move UV shell tool, is technically by doing that, these are already unwrapped, but I want to show you how to do it anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight up here and then deselect these just so I have just the top of it showing. So before I went UV and cylindrical up here, now I want to do planar. I'm going to try this best plane really quickly. and just see what happens and press enter. And that's really neat. So I've never actually used that tool before until just now. It looks like if you use the best plane tool, you will be able to skip a few steps in the planar. So the best plane, you just go ahead as it just showed you, select one or more faces or three or more vertices, CVs, locators, to define the projection plane, then press enter. So I'm just going to go ahead and highlight those like I just did, right? And then I'm going to press enter. And let's see if that worked right. Tools, UV, let's go best plane, and enter. Alright, so I just tried this tool, tools, move UV shell tool, and it basically tells you, so it does work okay and it doesn't work okay. So basically what this did is, if you don't have these colors on, be sure to click on the second icon here. Okay, it's the second icon here. It turns on UV display. And blue is good and red is reversed. So technically, if I were to take these UVs, oh, let me just get that out of the way, and I were just to flip them, it would be okay. So there's a couple different ways we could do this. If I go into tools, or actually modify, and then just run a flip, now they're okay and they're facing the right way. So basically the UVs, when we did the best plane projection, it projected it from what it thought was the best plane, but it really wasn't because it had it reversed. So I'm going to show you a way to sort of make sure you get it from the right plane. So in here, I'm just going to select my faces, and this was the one that was reversed. So I'm going to go to UV and show you the planar. Okay, so I'm going to hit this little settings box really quickly, and I know I'm going to need it on the y-axis. Fit projection 2. I'm going to keep, since we just tried best plane, I'm going to try bounding box here. Keep image with height ratio, insert projection before deformers. Okay, so I'm going to hit project, and you'll notice that it projects from this cube directly over it. And when we do that, and I set it to the y-axis because I know I need it to be on the y-axis because it's going, I would need the projection to be up and down. And you'll see here that I get a really nice clean unwrap. So all three of those methods, the cylindrical obviously for the cylinder part, and then I also have the best plane, which you can fool around with, and I even showed you if it does take it from the wrong plane, you know, basically the opposite side where it shows the red faces in reverse. If you remember back to when I showed you the topology video in the before you begin section, and how I explain how Maya uses topology and breaks it down, and then I went into backface culling, showing you which side normals would display. The backface culling, in case you don't remember, was the faces that would go invisible when I would rotate around the object to the opposite side, because the normals or the mesh display will is only meant to display on one side. So when wrapping around with backface culling on, it was showing you that technically there was nothing there because it was on the opposite side. Anyway, that's basically what that red means. On a polygon, if it has, you know, if you've seen that black-sided face, having a red-sided face in the UV editor, it basically means it's flipped also, or reversed. So I showed you how to flip a UV. That was modify flip, and that's kind of the best explanation I have for you as to why this was red. And if you saw the topology beginning in the before you begin section, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and highlight all of these UVs, and I just want to do something really simple. So I'm going to do my tools, show hide UV toolkit. My UV toolkit's over here. And I'm going to go to arrange and layout, and I'm going to do layout along U. No, let's try V. So there we go. Perfect. Instead, I just tried layout, and I got a really nice unwrap here. Now, I could even make this a little bit bigger, but I'm just going to leave it as is. I think that's totally fine for what we're using this with. But if you wanted, you could use your tools, move UV shell tool, and you essentially still have more room to work with. So I could scale these a little bit larger because I'm not too worried about some other things that I will get into later. Tools. Excuse me, I just had something fly into my face or tickle my nose, basically. Oh, there we go. So I just made them a little bit larger and just gave them a little bit of separation in between. But basically that's it, because I know I have from 0 to 1, and then across to 1 to 1, and then down to 0 to 1 on the x-axis, or the u or the v-axis. So anyway, that's how I'm going to have this laid out, and that's just using the UV toolkit and clicking on layout. And then I just made some adjustments, but keeping it as it was is totally fine also. Now from here, if you remember from the previous video, this will just basically be a review. I'm going to highlight these. I'm going to do image UV snapshot, and I'm going to browse to where I want to locate this. Okay, and I'm going to name it barrel uv.tga. So I'm going to go ahead and save it in here, barrel uv.tga. Okay, save. And then I'm going to make sure it's a targa, and then I'm going to make sure this is 1024 by 1024, and then I'm good to go. And I go ahead and click apply and close. And now barrel UV, open. So now I've got my UVs for my barrel here, and I did also go ahead and I'm gonna include these in your in the canvas shell, so you can just download these and follow along with those. And in here I can take my lid. I'll start with the lid because it's just the first one here. I'm going to press Control A, Control C with my lid open, and then I'm going to press Control V. Now from here, so that was Control A for select all, Control C to copy. So Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste. Okay? And now I'm going to press Control T or edit transform, and I'm simply going to scale this to fit. And Control plus to zoom in. You could use the little magnifying glass, but I just find it a little bit easier to use the keyboard shortcuts. And now I'm just going to scale this basically to fit. Alright, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to press enter. I'm going to change this to be 100%. And then I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this. And then to duplicate it, I just click and drag layer 1 down here, to the new layer, and it just pops open a layer 1 copy. I'm going to press Control T and hold Shift while I'm using the Move tool. And I'm also going to bring down my opacity just so I can see it a little bit better. And right about there. And I'll press Enter, and I'll bring my opacity back up. Top left lid, top right lid. Okay. I can name my background. I like to just do this. We'll call it barrel UVs. And I'll delete this one because I don't need it now. Okay. And now I'm going to take my barrel texture, Control A, Control C, and Control V. So Control A to select all, Control C to copy, and then I switch to this file and press Control V to paste. Now I'm going to press Control T for Edit Transform, and I'm simply going to put this in place. And I'm also going to change my opacity and shrink it down just a little bit. I think that'll work. Find out here momentarily. I think that'll work. Let me see. So I'm going to need to make this, don't want this to snap. So what I'll do is I'll take this off. There we go. And I can just see the very tip of this. I'm just resizing this. Okay. There we go. Alright. So all I did was cover my UVs, because this is what I'm need to texture. It's like my map that I need to fill in, right? It's almost like a coloring book, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead with that, and now I'm going to press Control Shift and S to save this, and I'll go ahead and save it as barrel diffuse .psd. I'll save it as my PSD file, and I will also save it as a targa, and I'm going to turn off alpha channels and click Save. And then 32 bits pixel and OK. And now I'm going to go back into Maya, and I'm going to assign a new material. I'm going to go ahead and click on Blend, and then I'm going to go down here to Blend. And you'll notice that I have so much stuff in here now, but if I go ahead and just do an edit, delete all by type history, and when I come back in here, it's all gone, all that information. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on the color map here, and I'm going to select File, and then under Image Name I'm going to select from the little file, and I'm going to go into, well, go here, and locate my file. Okay, so you'll see it's right here. I'm going to click Open, and now you're going to not see anything. You'll see it here, but you won't see it here. If you can remember why, I'm just going to give you a few seconds to think about it. Um, it's one of the buttons we need to press. So it's not 1, it's not 2, it's not 3. Those 3 buttons change the divisions, or change the preview to smooth preview and back to normal, and one's sort of a mixture of both. It's not 4 because that's wireframe. It's not 5 because that's mesh display. But it is 6. It's number 6. So if I press 6 on my keyboard, you'll see that I've got my barrel here now with a texture on it, and that wraps around like so. And remember, I didn't change any of the geometry on here. This is just a regular cylinder, but it is a barrel, a wooden barrel now that we've gone ahead and textured. So I think it turned out pretty good. This is just a texture that I found on CG Textures or textures.com. The lid I compiled sort of myself, but it is the same wood taken from here. And I think it turned out okay, but a couple things always to remember is to, when selecting on our object, let's change the reflectivity, and let's just go ahead, and I'm going to bring these all the way down just for fun. And now I've got my little wooden barrel that I've created, and yeah, so now we've got a crate and a barrel. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Just go ahead and submit your Maya file always, and just follow the rubric located at the bottom of the canvas shell. And yeah, if you have any questions, be sure to inbox me, and thanks for watching.